After a spate of violence and the death of one student, the Bolga Senior High School bus has been shut down indefinitely.
The numbers were overwhelming that they were able to overwhelm the police, that they could not actually control them. So in the process, they were able to burn down the car of the master who was being accused, and we managed to stop them from further destruction. But this morning, we quickly called the director, the district executive, the board chairman and his members, and the police commanders and other people to a meeting together with the management of the school, and they realized that it was not conducive for teaching and learning. Therefore, a decision was taken at that meeting to close down the school.
But how did discipline break down so bad in this school that one life has been lost and a string of damages followed? What is the fate of students as their school closes down? Is it all quiet in Bolga even after the close down? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Anti. Now, following a spate of violence and vandalism after the death of a student, tensions in the Bolga Senior High School reached uncontrollable limits, and authorities there made the decision to close down the school. The senior housemaster of the school, Stephen Awasinab, earlier spoke to our correspondent, Afrobarometer.
Now that the facts are coming out, initially the people gave some wrong information, and that was blown out. And now that the facts are coming clear, and the facts that are now coming are in consonance with what was reported to the management staff. So actually, when you talk of what should be done to the teacher, we don't know what he has done wrong, so that something can be done to him. But suffice it to say that a committee will soon be put in place to investigate what happened, and if the decision is taken as what should happen to the teacher, or that will be left to the committee that will put in place, because I don't want to say things that will be prejudicial to what the committee might be thinking about.
Now speak to correspondent Afrobarometer to gauge the situation on the ground. He joins us now. Albert, good evening.
Good evening, Steve.
So what is the situation on the ground as of now?
Well, the students have vacated campus, so it's a deserted place now.
Right, I'm curious because before the school was closed down, there were a series of violence and riots. Students were rioting, etc., etc. So my key concern is, after the school shuts down, is everything totally calm, that no group of students are perhaps planning to go return to attack the school?
Well, no. Yesterday, it was in the night that some of the students actually attempted to.
Right.
Well, they actually bent down the vehicle belonging to the other senior housemaster, who they accused of preventing them from helping their friend when he fell.
That's right.
And at the time, police presence was at the school, because it was in the afternoon yesterday when they started pelting stones and threatening to burn down school property. So police had been moved into the school since afternoon yesterday, and they were stationed there throughout the night. And so when the students said that in the night, the police moved in quickly, prevented them from causing further damage, and arrested 5 of the ringleaders who masterminded the burning of the senior housemaster's car. And so those 5 are still in police custody.
Yeah.
When the school closed down, they actually gave the students 1 hour. All of them, they gave them 1 hour to pack their things and vacate the school. And they tasked the security officials to make sure that within 1 hour, all the students vacate the school. So as we speak now, there aren't any students on the campus.
Okay.
And I'm sure following the arrest of those 5 students, I don't think that there will be others who will try to go back to the school.
So, I mean, my understanding from what you're saying is that the arrest may have been a deterrent, and that the students might be concerned returning to the school to attack anyone.
Yes.
All right. Now, you have been speaking to the students about this. What have they been telling you?
Well, the final year students especially feel that the decision to make them go home is going to affect them. First, they were writing their mock yesterday. The mock exam actually started yesterday, and they wrote only the English paper when the incident happened. And so the rest of their papers are on hold now, and they feel that their going home is going to affect them because by the end of maybe the next 2 weeks, they should have been finishing with their mock exam and getting on with the rest of the preparations for their final exam. Now, there are others, the first years, they just reported to school not too long ago. One of them I spoke with said that they had just been assigned their class, and so they had not even started effective lessons when this happened.
Okay.
So they feel very disturbed.
Right. Albasore, we're grateful for your time on today's big story. Albasore is our correspondent in the Upper East region, bringing us up to speed with the situation there. Let's get on to the other telephone lines now and speak to the senior house master, Stephen Awasnab, who is on the telephone. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm good evening to your listeners.
Thank you very much. So, what are the school authorities doing about the issues that brought about this violence?
Well, the school has so far been closed down temporarily, and what they are doing, they're about to set up a 5-man committee to the circumstances that led to that unfortunate incident.
Right. So, I mean, my concern is that if the committee has not yet been set and the school has been closed down, on what authority did school authorities decide that it was fair and objective to shut down the school? I mean, we have a number of final year students who are complaining.
Yes, it is not the school authorities that shut down the school. It was a decision from the board, the director of education, the district director, the regional director, the police commander who assessed the situation, the district chief executive. It was a crunch meeting this morning, which they met and took the decision following the threat on life and property on the campus.
Oh, as we speak now, the senior house master in question, I mean, I do know that the students are alleging that a senior house master was chasing this student who fell and hit his head against the curb and died. Is he still at post?
In fact, the line is faint. Can you repeat that and please speak up?
I am saying that the senior house master who is alleged to have chased the student who fell to his death, is he still at post?
In fact, I want to correct that impression. It is not true that the senior house master chased a student. The senior master was only passing to the assembly, and the students, the 30 students who decided not to go for the assembly, saw him and started running. And in the process, one of them fell. It is not true that he was chasing them. He was only driving past the house in which they were hiding.
I see.
When
So
they saw him, they started running, thinking if he saw them, he would recognize them and punish them. So
I see.
it is not true that he was chasing students.
I see. So this is the narrative that he gave you. Is that what he narrated, or this has been, checked by anybody who was there?
The line that is back.
Right. We'll try and establish a contact again and see if we can hear you clearly. But for the last time I'll try and see if you can hear me. I'm asking if this is exactly what the man in question told you, or this is an eyewitness account. Right.
The man in question there, what his life, he was just sent out of the campus with his friends, and now that the students are out, he will be back. Talking about what he should do to him, I don't know what he has done to bear anything in that way. But he was only said because of the life.
Right, we're very grateful for your time on today's big story. That's the senior housemaster of Bolga Tanga Senior High School speaking to us there. The line was not exactly good, and we will be continuing with this discussion. We're told that Emmanuel Zumakbe, who is the Upper East Regional Director of Education, is also on the telephone. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, how is the Education Directorate responding to the situation at BOS?
Well, the situation is calm now. Yesterday, sometime after 8, I had this call from the headmaster that there was some problem in the school. I asked him what the problem was. He narrated that the senior headmaster had gone to ask students to come for morning parade, which is a routine thing on Mondays. And by process, he saw one of the students lying down. When he got there, he realized that the student had been in pain. So he asked that they call the master in charge of dispensary and then asked whether this was the first time the student had a problem. And they said, no, that was not the first time. So they rushed him to the hospital and that he died on arrival. So, but that the students reacted and said that the senior master was the one who was chasing the student and he fell. So I told the senior master the headmaster that they should monitor the situation and get back to me, because at that time I was in Bongo district on monitoring. I was in a village called Duakantia monitoring, very far away from Bolga. So 10 minutes later, the director of education for Talansi called me to brief me, and I said, yeah, the headmaster had already informed me, but he said that the scene was getting ugly.
Okay.
So I immediately instructed that he should close down the school since I wasn't there.
I see. So this was by your instruction. I want to know how long you anticipate the school will remain closed.
That was my instruction when I heard that the scene was getting ugly.
Okay.
Close down the school. Earlier, I had told the headmaster that if the situation calmed down, we will put together a team, a committee of inquiry to find out the real cause of the problem, because we cannot say that the students were right, neither can we say the senior headmaster was right.
Okay.
If a committee of inquiry went into the case, we would know the nitty-gritty of the problem and then deal with it. But when I heard that the situation was getting ugly, I instructed that the school be closed down immediately. Now, because I was in the field, it was difficult to get me. And yesterday, by this time, I was still in my office. When I returned from the field, I went straight to the office at Bongo before coming to Bolga. So they were not able to get to me. This morning, when I called the director, he told me that so many things had happened, that the instructions weren't carried through because he informed the chief executive and they informed the security services, but the security services said that we should, let them handle it, that they thought that they could handle the situation and it would not get out of hand.
Right.
So they left it to the security service, and then later on, it went out of hand. So this morning, I called the director and he briefed me that what happened yesterday. The student went on the rampage towards midnight, vandalized a lot of school property, bent down the car of the senior housemaster. So I immediately rushed to the school. Indeed, when I was going to the school, when I was just entering the school, the district executive and the director were coming to meet me in the office. So they saw me, and then came back.
Mr. Zumakwa, I'll cut you in. I'm curious that this may have started bubbling before it escalated into this wide-scale violence. There could have been subtle incidents or reportage of maybe indiscipline or some form. You would know if maybe students' behaviors were not appropriate prior to that. Did you have any concerns about discipline in this school?
No, I didn't. The interesting thing is that I was in that school on Friday till about 7 p.m. when I left.
And all was,
we had a program.
All was calm when you were there?
It was very calm. The situation was very calm. This is one of those incidents that something triggers issues.
Okay.
I believe that there might have been simmering problems in the school, and the death of this student, unfortunate as it is, was a trigger.
Yeah.
It was completely unexpected, and everybody was taken aback. So that is the issue.
So beyond just the closure, what is the Education Directorate doing beyond closure to ensure that when the students return to campus, there will not be a rippling effect of their actions, or they will not return to this violence again?
Yes. I was at the school till around 12 noon. I spent basically half the day at the school with the chief, with the district chief executive, with the headmaster, with the director, with the security service, and then later on we were visited by the deputy regional minister and then the regional police command. By the time they came, we had gone far in our crisis meeting, and essentially the meeting was to formalize the closure of the school, then put in place a committee of inquiry. Hello? Hello?
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, good. Put in place a committee of inquiry, give them terms of reference, and then immediately get the committee working so that the committee will bring out its report, and then our office will issue a white paper to management to implement the recommendations of the committee that would have been set up. That was what essentially we spent the half the day doing.
Right. Mr. Zumakwa, we are grateful for your time. We will be following up on this development as and when it unfolds. Unfortunately, we will have to finish with our discussion today. Thanks very much. We'll get in touch with you again another time. On the other telephone line, we have ASP Thomas Agbanyo, who is the Upper East Regional Police PRO. He's joining us now. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Well, I think the Upper East Regional PRO, Police PRO, is not hearing us. We will be, he's on, I'm told that he's on now. Good evening, sir, if you can hear me. Good evening, Mr. Agbanyo. Right. Good evening, sir. Right, we're having difficulty hearing Mr. ASP Agbanyo, who is the Upper East Regional Police PRO. I hear he's on the line, but we may have technical difficulties in getting through the line. He's speaking to us from Bolga, Tanga, which sometimes we have challenges with the telephone lines. So if you've just... Good evening, sir.
Well, you want to tell me, ask and I'll tell you.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. ASP Agbanyo, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, good evening.
Yes, I'm curious about the situation in the school now. I know that the school has been...
Talk a bit loudly.
Right, if you can hear me. I know the school has closed down. I know the school has closed down, and the students are being sent home. Now, what security arrangements are in place to protect the property of the school?
The police are on the ground to make sure that nothing untoward happens. That's all.
That's all. I mean, what's the level of your presence?
Our men are on the ground at the school to make sure that no students sneak or whatever it is to come and do something that will destroy any property there. So the police are on the ground. On the ground.
Okay. So do you have intelligence to suggest that possibly there are some students who might be planning? Do you have any intelligence information to suggest that?
Intelligence what?
Intelligence information that some of the students may be planning an attack on the school?
I can't hear your voice well. I don't know. You were talking and I can't hear you. And
right.
You say you were talking of intelligence report. What intelligence report do you know we are doing? Please, we beat both intelligence reports and everything. And you are asking of my intelligence report. Intelligence report in hot form.
I'm asking you if you picked up any intelligence that any group or students are planning any attack against the school. That's a fair question, isn't it?
I don't think I can hear you.
Right. We would have to end the conversation. The Upper East Regional Police PRO, Mr. Agbanyo, is speaking to us there, but it does appear that he's not hearing me. We wanted to explore whether there being some intelligence information that have been picked on the ground as to whether some students are planning attack against the school. You also heard the Regional Education Directorate speaking to us there about plans to ensure that when students return to school, these things will not escalate into another level of violence. We are trying to get onto the other telephone line to speak to an educationist, IKJC, who is a former headmaster of a school, to gauge what usually is done in situations like this when there are reports of students' violence and agitation which lead to loss of property. Good evening, Sir Ike, just if you are there.
Good evening.
I'm grateful for your time at such a short notice. Now, give us a general perspective of dealing with a rowdy situation in a school of this nature. When this happens, what's the right thing to do?
The right thing to do is to report to the educational authorities at the district or at the regional level immediately.
I see.
And whether the school has to be closed down or not depends upon the severity of the demonstration.
So severity is key. I mean, any demonstration cannot lead to a shutdown of the school. There has to be a level of severity.
Yeah, sometimes the students just go to the street and shout their lungs out. Did not destroy any school property.
I see.
But where property is destroyed, where people are even attacked and seriously injured, then it becomes a matter for the educational authorities and the police. But first, the first line should be the educational authorities.
Right. I asked the Education Directorate, Regional Director of Education, whether there were not any indications of indiscipline simmering underneath this before it escalated. Usually when student indiscipline come up, which forms do they take?
You will have noticed that in almost all the cases, the demonstrations take place in a boarding school. Not in a day school. Because there's already a mass of students who can easily be guided or misguided, if I may say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to refer to extensively to the boss one, but as that happened, we were told that the students believed that the senior housemaster had caused the death of the student. In such a case, there is no planning. The whole thing tends to be spontaneous. But in some cases, I will tell you, a few students with their own grievances managed to get the support of the other students. And it's very easy. In almost in all cases, food provides a spark. The food is not palatable to them. The food was not well cooked. The kitchen staff have stolen their food. Instead of rice and the chicken stew, they were suddenly asked to go and eat kinky and fish and pepper, that kind of thing.
And that escalated into full-scale violence.
Yes, so there is always some kind of simmering discontent. But sometimes, as I said, sometimes it is spontaneous. And let me say this. I shouldn't create the impression that in all cases it is the students who are at fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may be due to the administration not getting it right. You know something? Every year, headmasters and headmistresses go on retirement. Every year, there is a replacement. But there is no proper formal training. Sometimes the person who becomes headmaster was never, or headmistress, was never even an assistant head.
Yeah.
He spends some time in the school, there is a vacancy, he applies, he gets the job. There is no formal training instituted for him by the education authorities. I know what is happening in the Ashanti region. For many years, the Ashanti Regional CHAS, that is Conference of Heads of Assistant Secondary Schools, has been organizing these courses for newly appointed headmasters. But it should be a countrywide thing, not limited to one or two regions.
I see.
See, because, having spent 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in the school does not necessarily make you a good manager.
I see. I could just say we are grateful for your time and enlightenment that you have provided into this discussion. Thank you very much for joining us on today's Big Story. Now, you may have heard that most Ghanaians perceive some or most or all of their government, law enforcement and judicial officials as corrupt. This is according to the latest findings of the Afrobarometer survey, which was released today. We've just got the press release from the Afrobarometer, and it says that a majority of citizens gave the same assessment of informal leaders such as business executives and traditional and religious leaders. So that's the Afrobarometer coming in, suggests that many Ghanaians actually see the government, law enforcement agency and judicial officials as corrupt in the case of Ghana. Now, trends over time, according to the report, reveal that citizens' perception of corruption has increased dramatically. The word here is dramatically over the past decade, despite a slight decrease since 2012. A large majority of Ghanaians, according to this release, are of the opinion that corruption has increased compared to the previous year. In addition, those who say the government has performed poorly in fighting this corrosive canker are in the majority. Now, on the positive side, according to the report, more than half of those who express their belief that ordinary people can make a difference in the fight against corruption. So that's the latest that is coming forward from the Afrobarometer reading, that most Ghanaian citizens perceive their governments and judicial officials as very corrupt. But the positive side of the report here is that they believe also that ordinary people can make a difference. You and I can make a difference in the fight against corruption. The report continues to say that the findings are carrying sorry, I beg your pardon, I'm not reading clearly. The findings are being released at a time when Ghanaians are crying foul over numerous corruption scandals. Well, I'll leave it there. These are the other detailed explanations that the report carries. So what you need to know in the latest Afrobarometer is that many Ghanaians feel or perceive their government and judicial officials to be corrupt. But the good news is that you and I can play a part. We'll be carrying forward this discussion on the interactive segment, and News at 8 will be tossing it furthermore. So we're grateful for joining us on today's big story. We'll be right back with Interactive. Do stay.